for another edition of Chalk Talk. Nick Camino, Ben Axelrod here with you. We are going into week 7 of the college football season already. Can't believe that. Ben and I were just talking a little bit before the show. It's flying by. Week 6 of the NFL season. And Ben, here we go, another week, and we're past the quarter pull mark for the NFL and college. We're almost halfway through the season here. We're halfway through.
Yeah, we are, and I think, we come into this thing and we talk about what did we learn last weekend, what have we learned as a whole. I think we're at a point now in the season where we can kind of make some definitive statements about some of these teams.
That's true.
I know we're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers later, and the Saints and the Ravens and teams like that, and as far as the Packers, I think we're at a point now where we can say that's a good team. They've done enough. They've played well enough throughout the season. So, crazy. We're a month in here, but this is kind of where now we start to see this season really take form, and it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, where it goes from here. Focusing
a lot on college football, plenty on the NFL. We look at it through the lens that is sports gambling, obviously, through entertainment purposes only. We hit some of the big storylines, and then we'll make some picks against the spread. Again, just for entertainment purposes only, 3 in college each, 3 in NFL each. Wanted to ask you, the college football playoff rankings, those first ones are going to be coming out soon. If I had to put you on the spot and say, Ben, name me your top 4 in the college football playoff right now, just through the first week, not what it would be at the end of it, because teams are going to play each other and things like that, but your top 4 teams right now in college, would you be able to provide that?
Yeah,
put you on the spot.
It's interesting because the college football playoff, they try to judge this based on its own criteria and in and of itself how this season has played out. And, you look, and right now I think Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and LSU. That I think those 6 teams have kind of separated themselves, but you can't have 6 teams. So
those are the 6 I think we'll see on that graphic when they show it, because they have the 4 and then the next 2. You know what I mean? I think you hit the 6 that'll be there.
Am I crazy though to think Clemson might be the odd team out here, the defending champs? I know they entered the season number 1, but just as far as quality wins, I guess Ohio State doesn't have. Ohio State now has a ranked win on its resume.
With the naked eye, Ohio State looks like.
I don't know how you don't have Ohio State in there. So I guess,
LSU, you're putting Alabama in there.
Alabama's in there. LSU has one of the best wins of the year over Texas.
True.
I know I'm skirting around your question here. I'm trying to talk it out as I. No, I know.
I threw you on the spot.
I think I'd have Alabama, Ohio State.
Agree.
LSU, and Oklahoma.
I think I'd go with that too. I was maybe thinking maybe Georgia. You can make an argument for it, but you're right.
Yeah, Georgia, that win over Notre Dame. I think any combination.
The good thing is this thing will work itself out.
Right.
I think by the time it comes. I think.
We have 3 SEC teams in there, and that's going to sort itself out. But this is, we haven't. I tweeted the other night just about how kind of underwhelming this college football season has felt in terms of upsets and big matchups. And I don't know if we've ever gotten to this point in the year where there's still so many teams at the top of this playoff race.
Yeah, that's a good point. NFL, I think one of the big storylines this week was Jay Gruden got fired by the Washington Redskins. They've just become a total mess. And it's funny, I know earlier in some of these Chalk Talk shows, we did some fun odds and things like that. And first coach to be fired, if you had Gruden, I know he was near the top as one of the favorites. You cashed that, so congratulations. There were some names on that list, and he was certainly near the tops of all of them. You weren't surprised by that, right? They've just become a mess.
No, I was surprised that he was there for 6 years. I thought he was in his 3rd year there. I can't believe he lasted 6 years there, where they only made the playoffs once under him. We talk so much about the season through the prism of the Super Bowl and contenders and stuff. I think what's really fascinating about this NFL season is the race to the bottom.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about this big Washington-Miami game coming up this weekend, but between Washington, Miami, the Bengals, the Steelers now sitting at, although they don't have their pick, sitting at 1-4. This is really an interesting NFL season at the bottom of the standings as well as at the top of the standings.
And I'm thinking about who is this the race for? Is it Justin Herbert from Oregon?
Oh, I think it's Tua.
I think Tua is the Tagovailoa.
Yeah, I'll let you
Alabama.
pronounce his last name, but I think Tua is he's kind of the prize. Although, if a team, let's say Washington gets it and they think they like what they have in Dwayne Haskins, do they look at Chase Young, another Maryland product from Ohio State? So, yeah, I mean, Tua, Herbert, Jake Fromm's in there, Joe Burrow, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But this is a good quarterback class. So it's interesting that teams like the Bengals, a team like Miami, the way this draft is shaping up already in terms of who's going to pick where, very top-heavy in terms of where we can see the quarterbacks taken.
All right, we're going to take a mini victory lap this week here on the show.
I thought we agreed we weren't going to acknowledge the successful weeks.
Another winning week for Ben. I finally had a winning week, went 4-2. And Ben has a winning record on the season. Ben, I know you can give some of those numbers, and I'm back at 500, which I'm just happy about because I was in a little bit of a hole. So hopefully we put that in the rearview mirror. Unlike the Browns now. Yeah,
I went 3-2-1 overall last weekend, 1-1-1 in college, and 2-1 in the NFL, a half point away from at least a push there. But yeah, 2-1 in the NFL, 3-2-1 overall for the season. I'm at 16-12-2, 7-6-2 in college, 9-6 in the NFL, so above 500 in both. You went 1-2 in college, lost that Baylor Kansas State game in Auburn, Florida, but won your big Kansas Oklahoma pick. So
that was the one. That was the one, and I give you credit. You never laughed at that. You never. You were like, all right.
I sent you a tweet once Kansas went up 7-0. I was with you.
They had to
all the
hold
way.
on at the end, though.
Yeah. But then you went 3-0 in the NFL. We both won that Rams Seahawks game, and then you won Packers Cowboys and Saints Bucks for 4-2 on the week. 13-13-4 overall, 5-7-3 in college. So you got some ground to make up there. But 8-6-1 in the NFL.
All right. So admittedly, even though I'm 500, if you're taking 11-10 odds where you're laying juice, under my record, you would technically still be losing. You got to get to 52.4%. Is what we're aiming for. So even though I'm 500, I'm just happy to get back to that point.
I'll tell you, though, what was interesting just looking at my week. I went 1-1-1 in college, and I still feel good about the game I lost, which was the Iowa-Michigan game. That was a 10-3 game. That was a 4.5-point spread. And then I pushed Penn State-Purdue. That was a 28-point spread.
Depending on the number, you could have won that.
Right. Maybe. That was a line that I was on the high end of that line. Yep. So, and then in NFL, I lost that Ravens-Steelers pick. Ravens -3.5. It goes to overtime. Ravens win by 3. That just shows you how close these things are and how dead on they get these lines sometimes.
Absolutely. I have like 12 pushes this year, and you probably should have been 6-0. So, all right, let's go ahead with our picks for the upcoming weeks here. In NFL, it's week 6. In college football, it's week 7. We always start with college. Again, all of these for entertainment purposes only. I'm going to start with some action here, Ben, and we're going to take the Miami Redhawks getting 13 points on the road in Kalamazoo against Western Michigan. Now, there's a couple of trends straight up that do not favor this. The Redhawks are 2-10 in Kalamazoo since 1979, and the Broncos are 12-3 in the series since 1988. I think Western Michigan will win the football game. They played Syracuse tough earlier in the year. I just think this is pretty high. I think Miami's one of the better teams in the MAC. I know they're going on the road. It's an early start. I think it's a noon start. It'll be a nationally televised game, but I just think that Miami of Ohio getting 13 is too many. I think they can lose by 10. I think they could maybe even win the game. So, even if they are to lose, I just don't think it'll be a blowout. So we'll take the Redhawks plus 13 against Western Michigan. That's my first one.
Yeah, I don't follow MAC football as closely as some people around
Tuesday
the
night
state.
You will.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where it's like you know everybody gets into the MAC during the week, and I always feel like I'm on the wrong side of those whenever I do. Growing up around OU and Miami and Bowling Green and Toledo, Kent State, Akron, all the MAC teams around here. It just seems like this is all cyclical. Like it seems like one year Akron is the team to beat, and then the next year Toledo is, and then one year Kent State's on the verge of making the BCS. Like it just seems all cyclical. So I'm not going to give you a strong take on this other than, I'll take the 13 points.
It just seems like it's too many. Yeah, I mean I think Western Michigan will win the game, but I think Miami keeps it close. The Redhawks getting 13. All right, I know that I was a little gun shy on this one because you had lost with Iowa this past weekend. But I'm going to take the Iowa Hawkeyes getting 4.5 against Penn State. They're at home. We know how well they've played there. A couple of years ago, they beat second-ranked Michigan there. Should have beaten Saquon Barkley's Penn State team there a couple of years ago. They're just tough at home. We've seen Ohio State go there, and I know they're coming off a tough loss. But I just think Kirk Ferentz is going to have these guys buying in. You and I think, both agree Wisconsin is the team to beat in the Big Ten West. But I think Iowa is believing that if they can win this game and kind of stay in the hunt, their game against Wisconsin will decide the division winner. So even though I think Wisconsin's going to win that game and they're the favorite, I don't think Iowa's believing that. I think that they are believing in themselves. Penn State's a team, they've played well at times. They've shown that blowout gene, but a rough first half against Buffalo earlier in the year and things like that. I just wonder about them. Now, Iowa has lost 5 straight in this series, but they're 48-22 their last 10 years at home. Not against Penn State overall.
And this isn't a big crossover series. These are two teams that have been in different divisions.
Yeah.
So they're not playing year to year. I mean, James Franklin.
That's right.
I don't have it how many times he's played Iowa, but I can't imagine it's been all that often.
So similar to my first game, I think Penn State can win the football game. I think Iowa finds a way to make it close. I think Iowa can win the football game, but I think Iowa will keep it close even if they lose by a field goal, or in this instance, if they lose by 4. We would still win. So we're going to take the Iowa Hawkeyes, getting 4.5 at home. That's a primetime game on ABC at 7:30.
Yeah, bounce back spot for Iowa coming off that loss to Michigan last week. And then Penn State, I mean, they have that blowout gene, but they've also been beating up on some bad teams lately. Purdue, I picked against Purdue last week because of how beaten up they were. And this could be one of those things where Iowa is tested from the Iowa State game, from the Michigan game, where Penn State comes rolling in. Their only real test this season has been Pitt.
That's a good point.
It could be one of those punch-in-the-mouth type of games for Penn State where, at the very least, they're shell-shocked by what's going on.
Yeah, again, I think Penn State can win, but we'll take Iowa. Last game, and I think Ben and I have some agreement, and this will be a nice transition because we're going to get his 3 college picks after this. I'm going to go with the Texas Longhorns getting 10.5 versus Oklahoma. The game's in Dallas. It's the Red River Shootout. These guys play
I think
each other.
rivalry now. I think it's Red River rivalry.
Red River rivalry.
You got to be careful with
that's
that.
right. That's exactly right. Texas is, listen, the last 5 regular season meetings between these teams have been decided by 7 points or less.
Yeah.
Texas has won this game recently. Was it last year?
Last year, they played twice last year.
Oh, that's right. They lost in the conference championship.
Texas won the regular season matchup, and then Oklahoma won the Big 12 title
That's right.
game.
So all these games are tight. Again, similar to my first 2 games, I think Oklahoma can definitely win the game. I think it'll be close, though. And we've talked about Tom Herman as an underdog. Dallas is a place where I think it'll be split fan-wise, but I still think Texas shows up for this spot. Just beat West Virginia last week, and they weren't looking past them, which was impressive to me. I'll take the Texas Longhorns getting 10.5. So just to recap, I know you have agreement on that one. We'll get to your picks, but just to recap my 3 college picks, Miami of Ohio getting 13. Iowa plus 4.5 and Texas plus 10.5. All underdogs in this matchup.
I'm with you on Texas, Oklahoma. That line stood out to me when you start to go through the lines of what you're going to pick. Seems high. Tom Herman, I think just being familiar with having played Oklahoma, being familiar with this rivalry, playing them twice last year. So a lot of familiarness with the roster and who's across the field. Tom Herman, as a head coach since he took over at Houston, I believe in 2015, 13-3-1 as an underdog, 8-3 at Texas. That includes a loss this year against LSU earlier this year.
Right. That was a good game.
Texas was an underdog, but a closer game than the line or final score indicated. But
the only thing that worries me about Texas, and I'll just interject because I picked this game too, is the defense. I feel like at times their defense lets them down, and I wonder if Jalen Hurts could run it up on them. But offensively, they've shown they can score too. So that's the only worry I had on this one. Yeah,
Oklahoma too. I'm a little, and I'll probably eat my words on this. I'm not ready to put Jalen Hurts in the same class as Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray.
Okay.
I think Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback. I think he's a very experienced quarterback. I think he's capable of putting up big numbers against bad teams. But I'm interested to see what he does here in this rivalry game, primetime game against Texas, which, defensively against LSU, we saw those issues, but we know there's talent across the field and across that Texas defense. So I'm with you. I like Texas plus 10.5 versus Oklahoma.
All right, so you still got 2 more college games to give us. What do we got?
Yeah, we're going to start on Friday night here. Virginia, a pick at Miami.
Which I don't understand.
Yeah, me neither. I thought this line
6, 7?
Yeah, between 3 and 7, somewhere in there. I thought this would be at least a 1-score type of line. Miami, a rough season so far under Manny Diaz. 3 losses already. The loss to Florida, obviously. The loss to North Carolina. And then last week against Virginia Tech. Virginia only lost the season against Notre Dame. I think this is a battle-tested team. Miami on a Friday night. I don't know how much of a true home field advantage you're going to get there at the Rock. So, I'll take the pick. I'll do that without having to lay any points.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You're getting the better team. Yeah, they're on the road, but what's the environment going to be like? I think Bronco Mendenhall's done a nice job over there, so I'm with you on Virginia.
Yep. And then my third college pick, I like LSU minus 13 versus Florida. I know the Gators beat you last week against Auburn there, but I think LSU, I think, is undervalued with how good Joe Burrow is in the spot. I think we talked last week about Florida jokingly about how it's the same Florida team we've seen every year, a good defense or a great defense and a quarterback who can do just as much. We used to talk that way about LSU, and I think there's still some bias in the way we view LSU, but Joe Burrow has flipped that on its ear. I know we've talked about some Heisman odds before. Joe Burrow now is second in Heisman odds behind Tua. So I just think Florida, a rough game against Auburn, at least physically last week, another big primetime game here against the LSU Tigers. I'm going to take LSU minus 13.
I'm with you. The line is high, but there's a reason for that. Big emotional game for Florida last week at the Swamp. Now they're taking on LSU. I think this game could get ugly.
Yeah, I do too, and that's what I'm banking on.
All right, there you go. So your 3 college picks.
I like Texas plus 10.5 versus Oklahoma. I like Virginia as a pick versus Miami. Florida, and I like LSU minus 13 versus Florida.
All right, so we've got 6 total NFL picks we're going to get to. We'll start with Ben. He's got 3 for week 6 of the NFL season.
Yeah, this first pick, I've been going against the Saints throughout the season, and it hasn't worked out well for me. I know
go the other way.
Yeah, the Saints have worked out well for you the last 2 weeks. I'm going to go with the Saints here, though, +1 at the Jaguars. I was surprised by this line. I thought the Saints would be favored. We talked about it last week, but I think Teddy Bridgewater, at the very least, is a capable placeholder for Drew Brees and able to make the most of that talent. Alvin Kamara. Michael Thomas had a breakout game, at least as far as the season last week. Jalen Ramsey, who knows what's going on with him, so that puts all the weapons for that Saints offense in play. And then defensively, the Saints are one of the more undervalued teams in football. Marshawn Lattimore looking like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate after kind of a down year last year. So I like the Saints +1 at the Jaguars. I'm still not... Gardner Minshew, I know he's capable of getting it done. I know he's capable of some of that Minshew magic, but I think this Saints team is a different animal than what he's seen these last few weeks.
And the Bridgewater thing, I feel like, has worked perfectly because even the last couple of years with Drew Brees, he's been fantastic, but they haven't asked him to do as much.
More game manager.
Yeah, they've run the ball a lot. He throws to the tight ends a lot. I mean, I don't feel like they've needed him to throw the ball 50 times for them to win, and I think that's what they're doing with Bridgewater, which is allowing them to have success. Is they're just kind of keeping it simple, keep the game plan simple, run the football, and I'm with you on this one. Line scares me a little bit. I don't know why it's 1, but I'll go with the Saints with you.
Yeah, it almost makes me want to go the other way with what the line is, but I'm going to go with the Saints +1. And then my second pick, Ravens -11 versus the Bengals. This is a big line. I think it's the second biggest line of the week.
It's big in the NFL.
The Patriots going to play anybody this season? Like, they are... This has to be a record as far as
16.5. I saw there against the Giants. Right?
A record for double-digit lines in a season, but I digress. I think the Ravens, though, we've seen that they can beat up on bad teams. We saw that in Week 1 against the Dolphins. This Bengals team is as bad as they get, and I think with the Bengals watching the Redskins and the Dolphins playing in the Tua Bowl, they need to keep pace. They need to lose this game. I think the Ravens, like I said, just capable of beating up on bad teams. If they're already a game up in the division on the Browns. If they can win this game and the Browns lose to the Seahawks, a game I know we'll talk about in a little bit, they could go up 2 games in the division.
That's true.
Big spot for the Ravens, but I think the Ravens, I don't know what to make of the Ravens, but I do know they can beat up on bad teams.
Yeah, it's true. And I wonder if that Browns game, that loss to the Browns, was almost a wake-up call for them. Like, hey, we've got an opportunity here. They beat Pittsburgh, tough game, and now I think you're right. They probably roll these guys.
Yeah, that's what I'm counting on.
All right, so your 3 NFL picks.
Well, I've got my third here.
Excuse me, third one, third and final.
Monday Night Football, Packers -4.5 versus the Lions.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, I know the Packers are good. I'm still waiting for the Lions to show it to me. I'm not ready to buy into the Lions.
They've played some good games.
They've played good games. Yeah. They have a good record, but and it's some preseason bias I have with them. I just didn't think they'd be a good team. The Packers I was iffy on because the offense has been so up and down, but after seeing what they did to the Cowboys last week and what they've done on a week-in and week-out basis, I'm buying this Packers team. So this is a prove-it spot for me with the Lions, but I'm going to count on the Packers to cover that 4.5 line.
It's a stay away from me. Obviously, your reasoning makes sense. Detroit, though, I mean, going on the road and beating Philly, that was unbelievable. Yeah. You know, they played Kansas City very tough. So stay away spot, but certainly your points make sense.
Yeah.
So your three NFL
My
games.
3 picks. I like the Saints +1 at the Jaguars. I like the Ravens -11 versus the Bengals, and I like the Packers -4.5 versus the Lions.
Okay, so 3 NFL games for me. We'll take these against the spread, all of it, again, for entertainment purposes only. We're going to go to London. We're going to go across the pond for the first game, Buccaneers versus the Carolina Panthers. Now, these two teams played on September 12th. It was a Thursday night football game.
That's right.
And the Buccaneers won that game 20-14 on Thursday night football. I know it's hard to beat a team twice. It's a divisional game. They have to go across the pond. As we mentioned, there's some travel to this. But still no Cam Newton. And I know Allen has done a nice job.
Yeah.
McCaffrey's coming off a big game. But the Buccaneers, to me, they've put some impressive games together this year. They go out to Los Angeles. They beat the Rams the way that they did. I think they'll be looking forward to this spot, an opportunity to really make up some ground in this division that seems kind of wide open right now, especially with how bad the Falcons have been. So I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting 2 against the Panthers.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this game is these are, if you look at the advanced metrics and Football Outsiders, DVOA and all that, these are 2 of the best defenses in the NFL this season.
Wow.
Quietly. You wouldn't really think of that, but both of these teams are good at getting after the quarterback. Now, the flip side of that is there are a bunch of numbers that suggest good defenses. We saw it last week with the Bears. Don't travel well overseas for whatever reason. Great defenses or good defenses don't play all that well in these overseas games. So that leaves me with the BUCS offense versus the Panthers offense. And I know the Panthers have Christian McCaffrey, who's looking like a MVP candidate for Carolina. But the BUCS quietly, Jameis Winston after a rough start to the season, Chris Godwin looks like quietly one of the best receivers in the NFL.
Yep.
Mike Evans is due for a big bounce back game after putting up a 0 last week as far as fantasy football was concerned. So, yeah, I mean, this is kind of one of those, I think, just take the points, and the BUCS could win it outright, and we'll see what happens.
It'll be a close game. I'll text you at 9:30 in the morning when they kick off in London.
I do think one thing I would be concerned about, though, with it is you mentioned that game earlier in the season, the Thursday night football game.
It's hard to beat a team twice.
Well,
they played.
I think Kyle Allen's been an upgrade from what we saw from Cam Newton.
He was hurt. I think he was hurt. You're right.
He was hurt. He was not playing well. And Kyle Allen, high recruit coming out of high school, bounced around in college, but but that also, on the flip side, going overseas, this is a new experience for him, and just a tough spot for him.
Yeah, we'll see how this shakes out. Carolina coming off a tough win against the Jags. Second game, man, this is hard to do after what we saw on Monday Night Football. I'm going to take the Browns at home against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Ben, you told me there were some lines out there. I didn't know what to follow, so we're going to go with Browns +1, right?
Yep.
That's what we're going with for right now. They're at home. They have not played well at home. The only thing I'm going off of, and I don't like to do how teams played against other teams and matchups. Now, the Browns have not played this team I'm about to mention. But earlier this year, I think the Seahawks, meanwhile, I should mention this. The Seahawks have a long week of prep because they played on Thursday night to beat the Rams. And the Browns have a short prep. They have a short amount of time. The only thing I'll say, though, is that earlier this season, the Seahawks had to go to Pittsburgh. They played the Steelers. They beat the Steelers 28-26. In that game, the Steelers did not have Ben Roethlisberger for like 3 quarters. That was when he originally got hurt. And I just feel like the Seahawks are great on prime time. I feel like they're great at home. But when it comes to having to play a 1 o'clock game where they have to travel, I just don't think you're going to get the same fire from that team. I think Russell Wilson will be tremendous, but I think the Browns, with as ugly as that game was, I think this is a little bit of an overreaction. I think the Browns find a way to win this football game before a really tough game against the New England Patriots and before their bye. So I'm going to take the Browns getting 1 at home on Sunday. I know it's difficult and you can laugh.
Yeah, well, the Browns have just been so up and down that it wouldn't surprise me at all if they won this game. I think if they get those cornerbacks back, Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams, that's going to be big because Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf have been so good with Russell Wilson this season. But, man, I just think Seattle has such a coaching advantage with Pete Carroll going up against this Browns staff that has been so iffy through the first 5 weeks of the season. With a long week of prep, Browns coming off a short week. There's not a lot that adds up for the Browns in this game other than...
Which is why you take the Browns.
Right, exactly. So I think the initial line, too, was Browns -1.5 before last night's game. So if you want to argue this is an overreaction to what could have just been a disaster game that the Browns throw away. Although with the Titans game also being in the same vein, I don't know if you can do that. So
exactly.
I'm not with you on this.
That's fine. I completely understand that. No offense there. And then our final game, the final NFL game that I'll pick, it's the battle of winless teams, the battle for Tua Tagovailoa, as you mentioned. I'm going to take the Dolphins at home, getting 3.5 against the Redskins. They're the home team. Gruden just got fired. Probably some distractions for the Redskins. They've shown at times they can move the football. I remember even on a Monday night game against the Bears in the second half, they rallied it a little bit. But I just think the Dolphins at home, even if they lose, it won't be more than a field goal. So we'll take Miami getting 3.5 at home in an awful, awful game.
Yeah, my fear would be that these two teams just try to outbat each other, and that the Dolphins look at their schedule and say, this is the one game until we play Cincinnati later this season that we have to lose. But again, I mean, I don't think you can argue with going with the points.
How does somebody take this game? I don't know how I do that.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, this is as far as games of intrigue this weekend. I think it's Browns, Seahawks, and then Dolphins, Redskins. So at the very least, you picked some watchable games.
Exactly. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Chalk Talk. Just my 3 NFL picks: Bucks getting 2 points against Carolina, Browns getting 1 point, and the Dolphins getting 3.5. As I'm looking at it now, we went 6 underdogs on my picks.
Yeah, three home dogs, although the Bucks are overseas.
There we go.
Technically the home team.
That's right. All right, it is week 6 of the NFL, week 7 of the college football season. That's going to do it for this edition of Chalk Talk. For Ben Axelrod, I'm Nick Camino. We'll see you next week.